hilarious because we could be talking about the exact same win condition and points of contention that he had last year, which is, I suppose he's playing this Vanity's Ruler, which he's picked up as his sort of main win condition of the deck, which is you tribute Cyber Angel Ben 10, search a Light Fairy, and then you tribute summon Vanity's Ruler.
It seems like a pretty robust win condition to me, to be honest. It doesn't matter what year it is. If your opponent can't special summon, they're not going to have a fun time.
Yeah, maybe it would have been fine in like 2007 or something, but now it's not so much. All right, so Reese, here's playing Branded.
There's some new Branded support, so I'm totally behind this deck. I don't know what it is about Branded, but Branded has struck me as one of the most fun decks. I don't know why. Like, it just stands out in terms of fun for me, like summoning big dragons, fusion monsters, recycling.
I think the main appeal is the fusion mechanic, because it's not really something I feel like that's been like extremely powerful in recent years, because just like fundamentally from a card advantage perspective, it's, you know, sacrifice 2 monsters to summon a bigger monster, and that's usually quite hard in a modern setting, but Branded fixes this with Branded Fusion.
Modern Yu-Gi-Oh, yeah, you sacrifice your 2 monsters, but they come straight from your deck.
Straight from your deck.
And then they all have effects when they hit the graveyard as well.
Yeah, so we're going to go for Blazing Cartesia, it looks like.
That's a Blazing Cartesia, and it has to be a Fallen of Albaz, so that means the monster, well, it could be the new Branded monster, which I'm not going to get the name of correct, but fortunately it's just an Albion, so I know the name of that one. Do you remember the name of the new fusion that takes a light spellcaster and Fallen of Albaz, putting it on the spot?
I'm not going to attempt it.
You're not going to attempt it. It's always tricky when you're learning new cards. You learn what they do, you learn their attack, you learn their effect, you learn their fusion materials. And
the name, though?
But what's the name?
Yeah.
It's probably got Branded in it somewhere.
Pass on that one. So sort of the, I guess, like one of the more popular win conditions that players have developed with the Branded strategy is Expulsion.
Yeah, well, I think we had a look at Reese's list, and it didn't look like he was main decking the gimmick puppet.
So Reese specifically is, I know he's definitely siding the engine, but just as a point of discussion, I think it's, I guess the gimmick puppet has been the main sort of way to establish this. For those of you who are watching just now, maybe not sure how that functionality works, it's the trap card, which is searched or set off of the Albion in the end phase, that allows you to bring out the gimmick puppet from your graveyard, which you send off the Branded Fusion to your opponent's field. Obviously not relevant this turn, but it is something that Reese will probably be doing at some point throughout this matchup.
Yeah, it's a bit kind of like what Nicholas is doing, prevent your opponent from summoning, well, special summoning in this case. It was an interesting line from Reese.
So what you're saying is they're basically playing the same deck, right? One is blue, one is purple. Right?
With extra steps. One of them uses ritual monsters, one of them uses fusion monsters.
Exactly.
I don't know which one's older out of fusion and ritual.
They're both
They're both in the first season, right, of the YuGiOh anime. But I don't know which one appeared first. What do you reckon?
Oh, has to be fusion, right? Yeah, Joey's fusion monster. and Thousand Dragon as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
So that Foolish Burial must have sent a tragedy, I suppose, because he added Guiding Quem, the Virtuous. The nice thing about Branded is I like Super Heavy Samurai as a deck where you kind of have these like combo lines, that are kind of pretty set. Whereas Branded, you really, every opening hand feels a bit different because you can use any fusion material. The order you summon monsters makes a difference. Just what you have kicking about in the graveyard so you can fuse with it makes a big difference.
People have developed a lot of like unique and sort of different approaches and strategies toward the deck. I think Verti Anaconda's ban was the sort of main point of evolving the deck from where it was played in the OCG, but over here that never really sort of took off. And what we've really tried to do is come up with just different strategies. And I don't remember if you recall Red Eye's Dark Dragoon was actually utilized
I really enjoyed seeing that. Yeah, no, I think it's still reasonably popular. I think the Bulgarian national champion was running the Dark Magician in his main deck.
Yeah.
And he said that it was a very, very powerful going second tool because Red Eye's Dark Dragoon's very good at breaking boards. So we see Reese going for a slightly unorthodox line here. It looks like he's going to banish his own Albion.
So I think he really wants to set up the Iron Dash in his graveyard, which I think it adds a card that mentions Fallen of Albaz from your deck to your hand in the end phase,
or a Springan's monster,
yeah,
or you can special. Yeah. So a lot
which includes Springan's kit, I think, right? And that gets you Mercurier.
Yes, because they're both No, Springan's not a Tri Brigade. It is a bit. branded can be quite difficult when you first pick it up because it's got a few kind of sub-themes all floating together. There's branded cards,
Yeah.
there's Despia cards, there's cards that mention Fallen of Albaz, and certain cards mention different things in their text, so it can be
Do you know my
quite
favorite
tricky.
thing to do in Master Duel is click on Fallen of Albaz, and there's like a related cards function. It gives you like
That's the whole game.
It's just like 2 pages worth of like a collection of cards. There's a surprising amount of trap cards in the archetype, by the way.
You should try that with Visa Starfrost as well.
Yeah, there's the Spring Guns kit in the end phase, it looks like. So it's actually part of, it's a Spring Guns card, but it utilizes, of course, the sort of semi-crossover, as you mentioned, with the Albaz lore. But
they've got a few crossovers, don't they? Because obviously they have the... there's a Sword Soul, well, it's not a Sword Soul card, a Worm card that mentions it, right? Oh, no, it is a Sword Soul card that mentions Fallen of Albaz as well. The
Which one's
blazing... There's one that special summons from your hand and tributes to summon a Sword Soul from your deck. Also mentions Fallen
I think
of
it can
Albaz.
only special by the effect of a worm or something, right?
It special summons if your opponent controls more
okay.
monsters than you.
Right.
There's quite a lot going on in the end phase here.
Oh, and the branded opening is that?
Yeah, that's a branded opening, so I guess it will be fetching Guiding Quem because he's already used the Alaba this turn.
So Quem is just a quick effect to perform a fusion summon, isn't it?
No, so Quem, when it's summoned, it sends a card that is either Fallen of Albaz or mentions Fallen of Albaz from your deck to the graveyard. And during either player's turn, once per turn, while it's on the field, if a card leaves the extra deck, so either is special summoned from the extra deck or is sent to the graveyard, for example, with the Mirror Jade that's on the field, then you can special summon, I want to say again, a card that mentions Fallen of Albaz from your graveyard. I might be wrong, it might just be any monster, but most of the time you're summoning. But that includes like branded fusion monsters as well. So you could bring back a Mirror Jade if it's already been used, for example, like that.
Do you know, last year, literally last national championship, I think branded was probably one of the decks to beat, and it was a lot simpler, wasn't it? It was really just like Lebellion into Mirror Jade, and that was your deck. But now, I mean, there's just multiple different approaches to how you play this.
Yeah, the combo lines to this deck do. I think it's like a deck that really you need to practice to get fluid
for sure.
with.
So I wouldn't really say there is like, okay, branded fusion ends on X kind of thing.
No, it really depends on the other cards in your hand, the other cards you've started off with. Because it's great to have cards already in the graveyard to banish with Albion, for example.
Yeah.
So if you can get a Cartasia in play first, then you can do an extra fusion summon as a quick effect.
Well, it's Nick's turn 1 here, and we're going to begin with Alpha, which is definitely a great starter in this. Gives you access to Ash Blossom. I think Ash Blossom is like, it's kind of weird against Drytron, right? Because it's either like it does nothing and they just have Alpha Zeta anyway, or it kind of just ends their turn.
It's the same with a lot of decks, I feel like. Sometimes you just Ash Blossom the first card and they haven't got a backup. And sometimes if they have full access to their engine and they've got monsters in field, it's not super relevant. But yeah, definitely, well, we'll see what goes on here.
I'm sure if you're out there like trying to look through the flowchart diagrams and spreadsheets for every archetype in the game right now, you might be able to detect a couple of like choke points where, Ash here or Ogre here or Veiler there is like a specifically like hard counter, but against the deck like that, see what I mean? Like we just have Foolish Burial to access the Alpha or Zeta. Oh, he's sending Gamma, so he already has both, I assume.
Yeah. Ash can be weird because sometimes you're just like it's perfect because it negates the card that they really need, and then other times they just have it. Yeah. Like here.
So Branded Lost is a really scary card in this kind of scenario. If we have a way to like set up a fusion, can we fuse on this turn with the?
I can't see anything that would allow Reese to fuse on this turn.
Does Reese have like any interaction?
Well, he's already used the Mirror Jade, and Mirror Jade, when you use it, obviously you can't use it again
once per
the
turn
next turn.
while it's on the field.
It's once per every 2 turns.
Well, you can bring it back and then use it
again.
You
can bring it back and use it again, but if you use, so the one he used on his own turn, which means he can't use it again.
So what is the plan here?
I don't know what the plan here is. I suspect Reese may have got a bit muddled halfway through his combo and not, because often you want to end with the branded, I'm going to get the name.
Branded in red?
Branded in red, the one that targets a card in your graveyard, adds it back, and then you get to fuse on your opponent's turn. You make a Guardian Chimera, pop their board, draw 5 cards, that kind of...
But, I'm not sure about 5, but close enough.
Yeah.
All right, so Alpha is... did we see his Ritual Search there? I don't think we did.
I can't see what he's tributed to summon.
Yeah, the alpha on the field was brought back by Gamma, but yeah, I'm not sure what he attributed for it. So going second, the various win conditions start to really kind of narrow down, I think, for Drytron. And I feel like it really is just kind of like attack and make a multiple material Zeus, which is going to be like we either try and go for the game here, or, you know, we just disrupt our opponent with multiple material Zeuses. I think he is getting to fuse here, isn't he?
Well, no, so this will let him summon a monster from his graveyard. So it will let him fuse, yeah, in a roundabout way, because he'll bring back the Fallen of Albaz. But yeah, so because Nicholas, a card left the extra deck of Nick, then the Guiding Quem triggers to summon back a Fallen of Albaz, and then one Fallen of Albaz is summoned, you can discard a card to fuse with it.
There's a lot of options here. I mean, there's multiple different targets. I think the Drytron is a machine, right? So this gives him access into either Iron Dash or...
Yeah, I'm a bit worried about what he can actually fuse. I don't know what's the attribute of Mubeda Fafnir?
Should be a light, right?
Okay, because you can't summon another Mirror Jade, because on the card it says you can only control one Mirror Jade. Mm-hmm. And you can't summon... Well, most players will not be running more than one Sprint. So you can't... Probably he's already used Sprint, so he won't be able to summon another copy of Sprint.
I think that's another Cartesia he just discarded there.
Yeah, well, I probably added itself back.
Yeah.
It adds itself back in the end phase from the graveyard to the hand if you send a fusion to the graveyard this turn.
So this is really good with the Albion being able to use that light monster, and it's essentially just like a Miracle Fusion, and the Lost gets the trigger now, and it gives him Mercurier, which is another point of interaction.
And the Fallen of Albaz itself, like fusing with your opponent's monster to start off with, is what's going to be really brutal here, because...
Yeah, losing that Xyz body is pretty important.
I'm not sure Reese has planned ahead of time what he's going to fuse and summon.
Can I just like activate Albion, see where we go into
Draco's Tapalia seems like a pretty reasonable choice, as long as he's got a fusion in his graveyard, or I suppose you could use one of the ones in play. Oh, he's still got...
You can use itself as well if you want to, right?
Yeah.
So there is Draco's Tapalia. And 2 more negates have been established for Reese here, just off of this this attempt of Nick to go for his Mubeda Fafnir line.
Draco's Tapelia's got this funny line of text that oh no, it sets your opponent's monster's level to 1.
Yeah,
which is fine, I guess. For is that?
I think if your opponent does stop that penultimate branded fusion, what do you do? Where do you go from there? And I think that's one of the main sort of real problem-solving aspects that branded players have to find for this weekend.
For sure. I think sometimes it's kind of like you maybe hope that branded is slightly more under the radar. Players are more focused on Super Heavy Samurai, Kashtira, etc. So maybe people are cutting the Ash, which is kind of, it's okay. It's it's never going to be useless. But
that's the thing with Ash Blossom, isn't it? It's a card that's like, it's never bad, but maybe there's sometimes formats where it's not exactly like game ending, as it maybe was potentially like last year this time. Because
we're seeing cards like Droll and cards like Ogre picking up popularity, and maybe Ash might have to make room.
Yeah, because that's the thing with like Ash Blossom specifically, if you're coming into a tournament where it feels like, something like Super Heavy Samurai might be popular, and sometimes you activate Ash Blossom against Super Heavy Samurai and you've just discarded a card. It just doesn't have an effect, right? So a lot of people might be inclined to not run it, and I guess that gives credence to Branded to be able to be a little bit more versatile, or resilient, shall I say.
I don't know if there's any more proactive lines than hope your opponent's not got it in their deck.
Yeah, exactly.
That was your question to me. How do you deal with Ash? Well, maybe they just won't have it.
Pretty much, that's the solution. So notice here that Nick picked up a Call by the Grave.
Yeah, he's got his way of dealing with Ash.
Yeah, and that's an alpha for Gamma. I think, that body language that people have sometimes when you just know, like, they're about to
pop off.
Yeah, like you can tell like he's about to cook up.
He's moving his cards very fast, which is always a bit worrying.
Okay, all right.
Here we go. Discarding the Benten. How many copies of Benten can you run? I'm showing myself for being lack of knowledge about Drytron.
Oh, don't ask me this question. My Macedon brain won't be able to answer that.
Well, he only needs the one.
Well, one is all you need, let's just say that. There's that all-important Vanity's Ruler that's been added from Nick's hand, and no normal summon really required in this deck. I mean, I guess we've seen some people play like Manju, Senju. Maybe, probably not Senju, but we have seen like one copy of Manju that's been played sometimes, but yeah, all you really need to do is tribute summon that Vanity's Ruler. And the amazing thing about Vanity's Ruler is it's one-sided, isn't it?
It is. Oh yeah, that's a good point actually. I guess like in everyone's head, Vanity's Fiend was clearly the most popular of the two out of out of Vanity's Fiend and Vanity's Ruler. And Vanity's Fiend is a bit smaller and prevents you from special summoning, but at the end of the day, I think you'd rather have a monster that only required one tribute. But in this case, it's a fairy, so you can search it, and that makes a big difference. It's
a fairy that you can search, and of course, you get to play the game, unlike Reese here.
Does Benton activate when it's tributed for a tribute summon? It does.
yeah. It's just when it's tributed.
Just when it's tributed. That's really neat.
Not once per turn, multiple ways to get to another light fairy. It looks like it's just adding a copy of itself as well. You know, that's the funny thing is about Ben 10 too. It's normally like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, they'll say like accept itself and stuff on their text, but not in Ben 10.
Or once per turn.
or once per turn. That's a generally popular clause, but maybe not back when Ben 10 was.
And it looks like Mu Beta Fafnir also not once per turn, so you can be ritual summoning using its materials.
Yeah.
I'm slightly, maybe someone needs to have a word with Nick and tell him that there's like a new win condition everyone's using with the, a very cool win condition where you ritual summon the new Dark Magician of Chaos? No. What's the name?
The
Magician of Black Chaos, the ritual monster.
It prevents you from activating cards for that turn?
Yeah. You ritual summon it in your opponent's turn. Did Reese just, like...
I think he accidentally...
did he drop it, or was he revealing it for something?
No, I think he just accidentally dropped his top deck there, which looks like cross-out, actually.
Honestly, you're much better at seeing these cards from a distance. When you said, like, the Ash last game, and I was like, I guess it has to be Ash from the context, but I had no idea.
Do you need glasses, Tom?
Maybe. I think sometimes when cards are a bit shinier, it's a different print than you've seen before.
All right, so... do you think? Okay, just gonna ask.
Duel has a variety of little things. So
I'm sure we'll see some of that this weekend. But for now, it's good old Aliber the Jester here, who will be searching a spell and trap cards. Actually, does it say is it a card that says Fallen of Alba?
No, it's a branded.
It'll just add branded fusion, most likely.
It can add branded lost. It can add branded in red. It can add branded opening. If you don't have branded fusion, that is.
Yeah,
that's what it should say. It's like if you don't have branded fusion, you can add branded fusion. Because there are some cards that say that now. Actually, it's like if you can add this field spell, but if you already control this field spell, you can add something else. So in this case, Reese is adding branded opening. So I'm guessing he's already got a copy of branded fusion in his hand.
Yep, it's a good way to start, knowing that you've got both Aliber and Branded Fusion. That has to definitely open up a ton of different plays there. Was it opening he added? Because I see a Lost in his hand, I think, as well.
No, I'm pretty sure he added opening, but maybe I'm... that is an opening.
He's got... So Lost as well as Branded Fusion and opening. I mean, we're going to see a real whirlwind of plays here. By the way, we did get a chance to take a look at the deck list of Nick just before the round started.
Do you want to have a little look and see if there's any Ash?
I'm not sure about Ash, but I think one thing that I did pick up on was his use of, I think it was, he was definitely running Lava Golem, but I think I might have potentially picked up on a Sphere mode as well.
Oh, no, I think you're right, actually. I think there was a Sphere mode. Maybe he was prepared for his opponent to summon Vanity's Ruler.
Do you not think it's like really scary when you're playing such a combo-heavy deck like Branded? Or just any sort of combo deck, right? And you're sitting there and you're comboing, and you're playing, you're popping off, and then your opponent's just sitting there and they're like not scooping, and they're just patiently waiting. It's like, okay, what are they waiting for?
Well, it's game 3.
Of course,
you don't scoop game 3.
But in general, it's like, okay, is there like a Dark Ruler? Is there like a Tribute monster?
I think out of the decks, some of the decks, I think it really impacts you if your opponent waits and then plays a Sphere mode or something. But I think in Branded, you're happy. You haven't used too many of your deck's resources at the end of the first turn. And you might be able to still interrupt your opponent a bit if you've got that Branded in red face down, for example. Or a very, very, very shiny Albion right there.
That is a very shiny Albion.
That's I don't know what rarity that is. I don't know if you're good at detecting card rarities from a distance.
I guess it's kind of like the glare. A little bit hard to see right now, but we're bringing back the Blazing Cartesia here. Yeah,
that will be from Guiding Quem. So it's great to have that in play before you activate Branded Fusion, because then you get a free summon a monster from your graveyard. It is one of those things where it's a great card, and I'd definitely be pro including it because it gives you an extra useful monster to summon off branded opening if you've already have the access to the Aliber. But as you were mentioning before, like if your fusion gets ashed, it doesn't like help. You know, you want it in play. It does more things after your branded fusion resolves, which is what some people might refer to as a win more kind of situation.
Wow, this is really huge from Reese as well, I'm noticing, because we have a discard fodder with Lebellion, but he also has Ash Blossom in his hands. So we're going to be able to do full combo and have Ash, which, I mean, I kind of mentioned like in the first game, it's not like incredible against Drytron, but I think like if you have a bit of a clutch moment with all of these different powerful fusions he's setting up here, it could get really, really powerful.
Yeah, it's just one more.
So we go for the Mirror Jade.
There's the Mirror Jade. So my guess would be you'd like to use so you could set up the expulsion lock if the expulsion lock is in.
It is definitely.
It's the first thing you look for, is it?
Yeah, it was in his side deck, so not maining it.
But it's the sort of thing you have in your deck to side in for when you go first.
But the thing is, you only really access the Gimmick Puppet through Branded Fusion, right? So
no, you can send it with. I'm terrible with these names today. Granganoil, the dragon,
and that's what he's doing right now, actually.
So you can fusion summon that with Blazing Cartesia and either a light or dark monster. So pretty generous summoning requirements. And
very generous.
It can send just any monster from anywhere in the universe to the graveyard. So from your deck.
There it is.
There's the Gimmick Puppet.
Oh no! So unless Nick has smokescreened into a Gimmick Puppet monster, for those of you who don't know, Gimmick Puppet says, I think on resolution of its summon or something, you can only special summon Gimmick Puppets for the rest of this turn. So if you expulsion against a Gimmick Puppet player, you know, they're going to say thank you. But
that would be very funny. Or, you know, if they against a Monarch deck or something, you tribute summon Dark Dust Spirit.
So it looks like we're going to the end phase. Albion resolves, setting the expulsion from the deck directly to the Spell and Trap zone.
This is Reese, you know, you're saying you're the 22 national champion, but welcome to 2023.
How many times we got to teach this lesson to you, old man? Can't bring Drytron in this economy, Nick. I think it's fantastic that he brought his exact same list pretty much from last year.
Yeah, I'd be interested to compare like the list, like card for card.
But what is the win condition here for Nick? I mean, okay, here we go. Like, I'm not sure if this is the draw phase or when. It seems.
Draw phase seems like a reasonable time.
Seems like the place you would use it, yes.
So one card that is in Nick's side deck is that Grave of the Super Ancient Organism. And I think people originally started siding it for Kashtira, but it has this extra bonus of just being absurd against branded. Like, all of the monsters they want to attack you with are level 6 special summon monsters, level 6 or higher special summon monsters, and they can't activate their effects or attack. And as far as I can tell, there's very, very few answers to it in the branded deck, and it's a lot of floodgates. You can't really side them in going first, going second even, but this is a card that you can get away with because it does do things when you can just set it, and then, you know, even if you don't do anything because your opponent stops you from doing anything, you can just set it and then say, okay. So that is a potential answer.
It's really weird, right? Because the game plan, generally, when you're going second, is you want to play like a bunch of, you know, equalizers, field removers, like as we can see here, Droplet, but that's like that doesn't do anything against the expulsion lock. Lava Golem Sphere Mode would be amazing, but not in this kind of situation. So typically, like, you don't really side this kind of stuff going second, but I wonder if Nick has picked up and identified what you've just talked about.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess it depends how. I mean, he's playing Drytron, so that would indicate a bit that he's just sort of picked up a deck from last year.
Ash Blossom comes down on that for, I think it was a 6 cards.
6 card prosperity. I assume it's a 6 card prosperity.
You would have to dig deep here in a situation like this.
I always look at when someone banishes 3 cards of prosperity. I think, if you're only going to banish 3, like, why are you playing it? You got to banish 6.
Okay.
That's one set.
That's we could be in for a game here, maybe. All right. Well, Nicholas has decided to smokescreen us a little bit into Drytron control.
Labyrinth.
All right, end of main, I suppose. We're going into...
Is there an extra Grangoyle, do we think? I'm not sure. I guess we'll find out. So that's the Mirror Jade sending Albion. Nice thing about Branded Expulsion is it can summon something that's either banished or in the graveyard.
Oh, banished too? I didn't actually know that.
So it makes recycling your stuff just even easier. Because a lot of the time, like, if you banish a card, it's kind of gone. And some decks have a tough time getting it back, but with combination of Lubellion, Branded Expulsion, you can just, you know, your graveyard is your second hand and your banish is your third.
There's a lot of decks these days whose grave functions as a second hand, doesn't it?
Yeah. I mean, there's a few extra effects, obviously. So Reese has activated the Cartesian. Again, maybe he's not quite decided what he wanted to summon before he activated the effect.
It's really just like, you gotta, so the issue with, I suppose, you know, win conditions like the expulsion is you really need to capitalize on that follow-up. If your opponent even has like a little bit of defense, a little bit of way to like wall up on that turn 3, it can get a little bit scary because then they get to like, those floodgates are opened up by their next turn. So I think that's a Karatis here who's been summoned, right?
Honestly, trying to pronounce the names of the Despia fusions.
So basically what I'm getting at is here is like, we need to make sure that we can do 8,000 this turn. Because it's going to be quite scary to let Drytron have another turn.
Well, the fun thing, well, fun depending on whose side of the table you're on, about the expulsion lock is you can just do it again next turn. You can just activate Branded Fusion, get your Despian Tragedy in the graveyard, banish the Tragedy, reset the expulsion and you know, run it back.
Run it back.
But it doesn't matter how many turns you run it back. If your opponent activates Grave of the Super Ancient Organism,
that's a good point.
I don't know how you ever get over the line, to be honest. Even if you stop your opponent summoning for like 3 or 4 turns even, like, it doesn't matter if you're not putting any pressure on them, as you said.
We're going to have to beat down with just Aliber attacking.
If you give your opponent a Gimmick Puppet, do you know how many defense points it has?
22 or something, right?
2,000.
2,000.
2,000.
Too large.
Yeah, so unless you've got like a level 5 monster that can attack over it.
Santa Claus.
You know, if there is a Grave of the Super Ancient Organism face down, which given this,
it's a big if.
Sets,
it's a big if, but that appears to be, I think, one of the only sort of saving grace we kind of identify here for Nick. Then,
yeah, things can get a little dicey, I'd say. Because you really don't want to be siding against spell and trap removal, like going first. So,
in Reese's case, right?
Yeah, so you probably don't necessarily have any in your deck.
Yeah, I'm not sure I would look at a deck like Drytron and be like, you know what would be really good here? Twin Twister.
Well, I think something people were talking about with regards to the expulsion lock is it requires a lot of resources. And if you just do your, like, obviously it's more powerful with regards to restricting your opponent's plays and stopping what they want to do than pretty much anything else you can do, right? Setting up a Gimmick Puppet on your opponent's side of the field. But instead, if you set yourself up with a nice Guardian Chimera, if they just, like, set a card, then you can deal with that by using the branded red in your opponent's end phase. So there is merits and the other word, demerits maybe.
Downsides?
Downsides to both lines of play here.
This is Reese's main phase, right? We're not doing this in the end phase.
This can't be, because he added it to his hand. So this has got to be. There it is.
He did bring it in.
He did bring it in.
That
he knows
is
what's up.
Wow. That's genuinely incredible to be able to identify that going second, I'm going to bring in a trap card.
Yeah, you're not allowed to play trap cards going second.
It's just not a conventional thing, right?
No, I mean,
At least in a combo deck.
Yeah, for sure. It is very like, okay, you do whatever you want. I'll just set my trap card. But yeah, it's devastating. So heads up from Nick here because he's realized that you have to play it. You have to play it in response to the branded in red, or you have to play it in response to a fusion spell. Because
Lost is online.
That's also true. But even if Lost wasn't there, Grave of the Super Ancient Organism is a slightly old card, and it has maybe different text to what you'd expect, which says the effects of level 6 or higher monsters cannot be activated.
Yeah, so you have to preemptively use it.
If your opponent summons a monster and activates the effect, and you chain it, it's not going to negate it. Mm-hmm. It just can't be activated. So if they
to be fair, it's not like you could really take advantage of that.
Oh, yeah. What if you summon Guardian Chimera, for example? Because you'd activate Guardian Chimera, then
I suppose, yeah.
Then you'd be able to destroy it.
Yeah, that's true. But then again, you'd have to snipe the right cards.
You would, yeah. Well, you couldn't. If you chained it, then you'd know where.
Anyway, these are some
all hypotheticals because Nick
course.
saw the right line, and it looks like Reese is.
Okay, we do gotta talk about like what Reese does. Like what do we do here?
He was hovering over a mud dragon from his extra deck. It's like, if I can't summon level 6 monsters,
it is big.
I will summon a level 4. and I will beat you up with my Mud Dragon of the Swamp. Which you've got to get behind.
Do you think he's got multiples of the Super Ancient? I mean, how many cards can you possibly afford to set in Drytron, right? Like, do we have more than one or something?
That's a good question. I mean, he might just have extra copies of Pot of Prosperity. I mean...
Torrential Tribute.
Yeah.
There's Chimera, which, as you mentioned, would have been great. I suppose a single activation of Nick's back row prior, but this is just not going to do anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Great, it's a really funny card, because like...
I feel like I would have liked the Mud Dragon.
Yeah?
I mean, what else can you do, right? This doesn't do anything.
Honestly, I might be talking nonsense here. Branded in red, some of the branded fusion cards require you to summon a dragon or a level 8 or some restriction like that.
Yeah, maybe it is something like that.
I might be talking rubbish though. But there are a couple of the cards do require you to summon a particular thing.
One thing we got to keep an eye on is the timer.
That is true.
There's 8 minutes remaining, and realistically, this duel is not going to end. It's going to come down to who's ahead on life points. And so...
Reese currently can't do any damage.
Yeah, that's
with
the
the
thing.
field he has at the moment. Despite it looking very intimidating. You know, he's got, how much is that? 6,100 points in play, but none of them are allowed to attack. So it looks like he's going to do he's adding back the expulsion with branded retribution, so he's going to be able to do it again, the gimmick puppet. So Reese might not... Oh, he is going to get some damage in, maybe. Yeah, that is a Blazing Cartesia.
Yeah, this might be the only amount of damage we're going to see for at least a couple of turns
for the
here.
foreseeable future, because Reese knows he can just run it back.
Okay, one thing, can I just point out, have you noticed that Nick's pad is like full of life points?
He's done a lot of, he's done a lot of practice games.
He's been testing, right?
Are you a clean pad, or do you, if you go to a tournament, right? Do you do a fresh one for every match, or
for everyone?
Or do you?
No, I kind of do what Nick does. I sort of just do like this sort of continuation.
Because sometimes, I mean, I don't know if you're like super sharp-eyed or something, but I'm always like, if you know, I've taken like this exact amount of damage,
then yeah, it's well. The thing is, right? It's the way I like to look at it is, if I'm not going to be there for a long time, I'm there for a good time, and so do you do any notes, like, you know, player's name, deck that they're playing, you know, like almost like a diary that you can that you can recall later? I
think sometimes it's a good thing to do. I think, because after a match, obviously you'll remember everything that happened, and then you can, like, if you want to like evaluate your own performance after a game. And a lot of it's in the life points. I often have it. I'm so lazy when it comes to like life points as well. I'll write down like as little as possible. Often, like in a game, I'll look at my game and I'll have written like one item in the life point. Because
I've noticed that, by the way. Sometimes, like after a couple of like duels, so like sometimes you just don't need to write the life points, because some duels are just done.
Yeah, I mean, often in games, like, it's not necessarily the life point changes that are indicating who's winning the game, right?
Yeah,
it's the state of the field.
But it does look like life points are going to be integral here, as Nick is behind by 15 and attempts to try and play the game again here with the foolish burial of that alpha, I think it was, but Reese has summoned the gimmick puppet back to his field here.
I'm wondering if Reese can... I think he can, if he can access a Despian Tragedy, do it a third time.
Yeah?
I mean, Despian Tragedy can banish itself from the graveyard to set a branded spell or trap. So yeah, it could be a 3 full turns of gimmick puppet joy.
I think that's basically what he has to do, is just, okay, we're in the lead, we've established damage, we don't really need to do anything here. We actually, because I don't think there is an out in Reese's deck for the Super Ancient Organism. It's just a case of like maintaining the control of his 15 life point deficit.
Yeah, why not? If you can do it, you've got to be able to win. Even if you're in not ideal circumstances.
Was that a Natasha he just added?
It
was either a Benton or a Natasha that Nick just took there. We did see a reveal of the Droplet. So he brought in Droplet and he brought in Super Ancient going seconds. But he is just going to have to pass here because, yeah, the Gimmick Puppet is a turn-ending card. So hopefully Nick might be able to get a chance if Reese does not establish the lock for the 3rd time this duel. And Branded Opening gets him Tragedy if he needs it.
Well, Tragedy, you've got to find a way to get Tragedy in the graveyard.
In the graveyard, yeah, that's the issue.
So you can just do that with Branded Fusion, though. Even if you're the monster you summon is going to be like useless. It's a foolish burial with extra steps.
Yep, there it is. There's the Branded Fusion.
But one thing I was mentioning before that is I think quite funny is, you know, Reese has given his opponent a monster to prevent him from special summoning, but it's actually got too many defense points to deal with a level 4 monster.
I mean, that's the thing, like, beatdown with some level 4 or lower Despia monsters could be fine, but it doesn't really matter. We've done one attack. One attack has landed, and that's all that matters. That's all that matters here.
They're not small, the branded monsters, by any means. You know, 18, 15.
I mean, they almost rival Gemini Elf and Mechanical Chaser.
No one can quite beat Mechanical Chaser. Or Tardy Orc, that was my favorite, I think.
What about Werewolf? Are you a Genewart Werewolf type of person?
Oh, I did like Genewart Werewolf. I like the fact that the text on it said that it was normally very peaceful.
A man of the people.
Yeah. But when he needed to be, he was there. Yeah, so we see he sent the Despian Tragedy. Very heads up there. Gonna get his branded expulsion back again. And Nick's like, are you seriously gonna do this again?
Yeah, it's rough to watch if you're in Nick's position right now to see this happen again. But
he does need a way to get the gimmick puppet off the board, because you can't summon it to your opponent's side of the field if it's already on your opponent's side of the field.
Expulsion has to tribute your monster.
Yes, Expulsion has to tribute a fusion monster. So if
it looks like he's walling up here.
Yeah. So if it tributes a fusion monster that mentions Fallen of Albaz, then you can summon both of them to your field if you want to, but in this case you don't.
Okay, so it didn't work out. Reese has basically not been able to establish the gimmick puppet for the third turn here. Nick now has 2 minutes 30 seconds to try and do 1,501 damage at least.
And that's quite a challenge, given there's a big wall.
Yeah. I mean, he probably plays Nightingale, so he can get like maybe a couple of direct attacks in, but I don't know if it's going to be enough.
Nightingale would need, it against 400 per material, you can attack once per material, so you need
quite a lot.
You need 3.
Which would be doable.
To do 1,500?
It is doable.
Yeah, I mean, 3 level 1s doesn't sound like a massive...
Yeah, here's Gamma.
Massive challenge.
I think he might have established this. I think Nick has identified what he's doing here. Oh, he's playing Diviner as well as his normal summon. You probably side out Ruler going second, maybe, I don't know. But he's searching Diviner here because he needs that utility, I suppose, for the... Okay, no Untest being sent here. He's just going for another Ritual Monster, probably another Benten, just for the recursion there. Oh, okay, he's going to search a spell here for the Minionus. I assume Super Ancient Organism is double-sided.
Yes, it is. So I assume Nick will be aware of that. So he just needs to find a way to get a 3rd level 1 and go to his battle phase, I guess. But
yeah, 1 minute 20 seconds.
I don't know if he has it. He looks pretty. I mean, obviously everyone gets quite nervous when it's close to time.
Yeah. There's nothing left on Reese's side here to prevent him. Is that Natasha? I think it's not. Oh, he's gaining life points. That's another win condition.
How much life points is Natasha
I think it's half of the monster that it targets, right? So I think it's 1,000.
Can it target your opponent's monsters?
No, I don't think so.
But he can summon Natasha multiple times.
Yeah, this
right?
is. I think he might have it. He actually doesn't need to go to a new phase. He can actually just stay in the main phase and gain life points multiple times with Natasha.
That's always a bonus when you don't you can do everything in your main phase, so you feel like you've got a lot of extra time because you get to complete the end of your phase. So.
Oh wow, this is incredible. I think Nick. Okay, if Nick gains one more time, he's actually in a really big spot, good position here. Okay, so. What we're doing now is we're banishing the Benten for the Natasha to attempt to special summon it by targeting the, I can't say that name, the
Despian Quertus, yeah.
Yep, but Reese is chaining the expulsion here to tribute the Quertus.
I don't know if there's any... Oh, he can summon Fallen of Albaz, which is pretty handy. He's giving his opponent Fallen of Albaz.
Okay, and gives himself Tragedy.
Was that... Why didn't he get Fallen of Albaz himself? And then he could have fused off the Natasha.
Maybe he could have done that. But it looks like it's over.